With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey. This is a bunch of stuff, deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inaccurate.
It's Irish.
It's Irish. It is. We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
No, we Irish call it malarkey.
You know what this is? Yeah, and I reserve this word for those rare instances when it's truly deserved. This is malarkey.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
From the King Spring Studios here in Smyrna, Georgia, this is A Bunch of Malarkey. I'm your host, Charlie McMahon. Thank you so much for joining us on this mid-January edition of the show, on this cold, dreary day here in the Atlanta metro area. But it sure beats the snow. I'm sure some of you listening are knee-deep in snow. We've got a guest co-host today. Let's welcome Amanda to the show. Amanda, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Amanda is here. Well, Amanda, I had to look it up. We've known each other for over 5 years already. I can't believe that.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, it was like the fall of 2013, back when I wasn't a fat fuck and I was actually running. Amanda and I met through a running group here in the Smyrna area. She still runs. She hasn't put on a pound. Here I am. I can't get to the mailbox. She's still running. So eventually maybe we'll get to run again. Because if it was right now, I'd probably drop dead of a heart attack. And you know CPR?
No, I just leave you there.
So I'm pretty much out of luck.
You're pretty much SOL.
So one of the main reasons, other than being friends with Amanda, why we have her on the show today, one of our most popular, the most popular episode of A Bunch of Malarkey was recorded back in September, and it was called Crazy Coworker Chronicles, where I talked about some of the batshit crazy coworkers I worked with over the years. And now I saved a bunch of them to do a volume 2. Now, Amanda's been in your human resource. What's your exact title? You don't have to tell us where you work or anything like that, but what is your title?
My official title?
Your official title.
My official title at this point is Senior Human Resources Generalist.
Okay, and how long have you been in human resources?
This year marks 16 years.
So she's a 16-year human resources professional. I thought she'd be perfect to bring on the show and not only share some of her stories, but to shed some light on some of the stories I have. Like, if these stories took place nowadays, what would be the consequence with these people and things like that. But we're going to get to all that in a little while after we do some of our weekend recap and things of that nature. Now, there's a couple of stories. Now, I have literally now, Amanda, I must have 30 mutant stories saved out, which I don't even know what to bring to the show anymore because it must be something about after Christmas. People go fucking crazy when the new year starts. But I have so many stories, and I can only do 2 mutants a week because you don't want to start opening up the forum to 15 nominees now. But I've been getting these other stories. Now, did you see the movie Bird Box on Netflix?
No, I can't. It's a ripoff of A Quiet Place.
Right, so you have no interest.
No interest.
But you know the premise with the blindfold
and
everything.
Yeah.
Now, this is becoming a sensation all over the country. There's a restaurant here in Atlanta, and I also read around the country, New York's doing it, that they blindfold people. You buy a ticket, you go to the restaurant with a date or with a group, you blindfold it, and they bring the food out, and you eat the whole meal blindfolded. Now, one of the advantages to not being blind is to see if there's bugs in your food. To see what that, right? Isn't that one of the advantages? You know, no offense to blind people. I'm not putting down blind people. But one of the advantages to having sight, and don't you think sometimes it enhances the flavor of the food by looking at it?
Sometimes, yes. But I was taught also, like, the whole mindfulness trend,
right.
to have mindful eating. You close your eyes and really experience the senses. It doesn't work for me, but it can work for some people, I guess.
So isn't this like a date rape's dream? You're blindfolded, right. You just slip something into the drink. You have the roofie ready. Even if you're blindfolded and you're the roofier, you have it all ready, and you just drop it. You feel around for her drink. She doesn't know what the hell's going on. This whole thing is just dumb.
But if you're the roofier, how do you know you're actually getting it in your date's food or drink?
Maybe you peek out of the blindfold.
Yeah.
If they're gonna be a sleaze enough to roofie, they're gonna be a sleaze enough to cheat. So this restaurant. It's a Mexican restaurant, it seemed, where you get. Tickets include 2 tacos, a dip. Imagine trying to dip blind.
How do you dip blindfolded?
And a margarita of the eatery's choice. If you guess what kind of tacos and margaritas you were served, you get a free cookie.
That's it? That's all I get as a free cookie?
And then you got to guess whether it's oatmeal, raisin, or chocolate chip. So these Bird Box things out of hand. But no, not so much more than this Utah teenager may face reckless driving charges after trying to complete a Bird Box challenge on the freeway.
On the freeway?
Yeah, this 17-year-old girl was driving on Layton Parkway near Interstate 15 blindfolded. The teen and her passenger decided to try the Bird Box challenge when participants blindfold themselves and see if they can do everyday tasks. The driver pulled a beanie over her eyes and kept driving. Shortly after, the teen overcorrected and skidded into the eastbound lanes. She hit another car, a light pole, and a sound wall. No one was injured in the crash. Police are considering filing a reckless driving charge with the city attorney's office. Now, it's one thing you want to eat a taco blindfolded. I get it. It's something different, or try to get to your backyard. But driving on the interstate.
What an idiot.
So, folks, we talked about things we don't want to see in 2019 last week. And by the way, I won't wish you a Happy New Year, but you are our first guest of the year, so welcome. Welcome to 2019.
Do I get a cookie for that?
You might get a cookie afterward. So we in the opening, I said it was a cold. Hasn't the weather been terrible?
It's awful.
I mean, I think,
hate it.
How many inches over in rain were we last year? Like 17 inches over the normal. It rained like the whole year. Now it's cold out and it's raining. So it's a perfect day for comfort food, right? Did you hear about what Costco's selling?
Oh, yes, I have.
Yeah, folks, Costco is, and they're sold out on it. That's how popular it is. They're selling a 27-pound storage bucket containing 180 servings of macaroni and cheese. Now, I thought at first it was just you open the top and it was already pre-made and it was just you scoop out. But from what I understand, there's 180 individual like packets, and then you got to cook it and mix it with the cheese powder and all that. It's not like where you just open it up and it's like ready to heat up.
Oh, I thought it was already like a pre-made tub.
That's what I thought.
That's how it can last. They said it has a shelf life of like 5 years.
2 decades, 20 years. Now, 20 years.
That's disturbing.
But they're selling out. I guess these doomsday preppers are putting them in their bomb shelters or whatever. So,
I mean, I love mac and cheese, but not 27 pounds worth of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice day for a nice bowl of macaroni and cheese, right. But I don't know if I'm buying a bucket that can fit 100 baseballs, half a bale of hay, or your average 3-year-old child in. According to this report.
Average 3-year-old child.
It's $90, $89. You know who this would be good for? Too bad Christmas past. Jen, who I have on the show all the time, how much she loves cheese. Tell me this isn't a perfect Christmas gift for Jen.
But then is it fake cheese?
I don't know. It doesn't.
I mean, it lasts for 2 decades.
But I don't think she'd care.
No.
I think she just loves the taste of cheese. I don't think she'd give me a hard time about it. So, $89.99, folks. If you want 27 pounds of macaroni and cheese, Costco.com, or go to your local Costco, see if they have it. Figured I'd just throw that out there. I know you're probably trying to stick to your resolutions like I am. I'm down 3 pounds this week. So,
3 pounds. That's impressive for a week.
3 pounds for a week, and worked out 5 days. Went on the treadmill 5 days this week and Silver Comet Trail. So, and I've cut back on all the crap, even though my mouth is watering over macaroni and cheese now. Now, speaking of food, if you think at least the macaroni and cheese, it's in its own sterile bucket that nobody's touched before. Did you hear the story about the 18-wheeler carrying chicken tenders? It crashed on a highway near the Alabama-Georgia border, so not too far from here. Now, they had to put out the emergency management for the county had to put out a post on its Facebook page asking people to quit picking up the chicken because they were going back after whatever remnants of the chicken they didn't get. They went back and they had to tell people after 24 hours that it's not safe to eat anymore. But then again, if these people in Alabama are eating roadkill, this is probably gourmet to them, right?
What's it going to matter? Get a nice side of salmonella with your chicken.
So you didn't head over there for any chicken tenders?
I did not.
You missed it.
No. Yeah. I'll have to ask some of my family that lives that way if they got some road chicken.
Imagine, it says anyone who is caught would be facing charges. Imagine being in the jail cell talking to your fellow cellmates. What are you here for? Armed robbery? What are you here for? Murder? What are you here for? I picked up some chicken tenders on the side of the highway.
I wonder what charge that would be.
And I'd do it again.
Would that be like reckless chicken?
I don't know, but people were causing a hazard on the highway, impeding traffic, trying to pick up these chicken tenders. I wonder if they were like breaded, ready to eat, or if they were just like raw. They were just raw chicken. It doesn't really say. Huh. Yeah, I guess they're probably raw chicken. I would think.
That just makes you question why you would pick up raw chicken on the side of the road.
I don't know. And it's something about the new year where all these stories, I have hundreds of them just pouring in. And I'm not even looking for them. I'm just going down the Facebook feed or the social media feeds, and it's just one story after another. I'm like, I could do a whole show on mutants and all this crap.
You could. Well, you could blame the upcoming full moon.
Yeah, exactly. Is it a full moon?
It's a super blood wolf moon.
Oh, okay. So maybe that explains people's cravings for meat and macaroni and cheese and all this.
Maybe.
So this segues perfect to our favorite portion of the show.
Mutant of the Week.
Now, last week, folks, it was a 100% landslide, 100% to 0. The outrage for Outback lady, who was all over the news last week, the woman who went crazy because her parents wouldn't take her to the Outback and wrecked the house and the furniture and tore up everything. She won 100% to 0. She beat the wacky woodsy woodman who was up in the tree making owl noises trying to get her drone down. So I didn't think it was going to be. I thought the Outback woman would win, but I didn't think it was going to be 100 to 1.
Those bloomin' onions. You gotta go after those bloomin' onions.
So Amanda is going to read our first mutant nominee this week. They're both pretty funny, so I don't know how this one's going to go, but here's our first mutant nominee.
Do you want me to tell where this is?
Yeah.
Okay, so Odessa, Florida.
What a surprise, Florida.
That's gonna be a good one. It's Florida. A Port Richey man got upset when the Philly cheesesteak he ordered from an Odessa flea market was served on a sesame seed bun, according to the Pasco County Sheriff's Office. Hey, Pasco County, I wonder if that'll end up on Live PD.
Might.
Joseph Lagana, 27, of Port Richey, reportedly started arguing with the cashier at Gun Highway Flea Market over the kind of bun his sandwich was served on, according to arrest documents. Deputies say Lagana was being loud and arguing with multiple customers at the flea market, and he appeared heavily intoxicated. Deputies say he was slurring his speech and showed signs of loss of fine motor skills. He initially became outraged upon seeing sesame seeds on his sandwich roll, screaming that sesame seeds have no place on a Philly cheesesteak. The owner of the flea market told deputies Lagana's behavior was causing a public disturbance. Lagana was arrested and charged with disorderly intoxication and booked into the Land O'Lakes detention facility.
Now, I'm from up north. I'm not from Philly, but I'm from New York, and I've eaten my fair share of Philly cheesesteaks over the year, and I don't know if there is... If it matters if there's sesame seeds on the bun.
I don't think it matters, but I mean, I guess if you're a hardcore Philly cheesesteak lover, you don't want those sesame seeds.
I think I've had them both ways, plain, on a plain roll and a sesame seed roll. So I don't know why this guy got all crazy over. I mean, the alcohol probably had something to do with it.
But whenever you're intoxicated, don't you want to go to your local flea market for?
Well, that's the thing. What are you expecting from the Philly cheesesteak at a flea market?
Yeah, but, I mean, I thought most flea markets just have hot dogs or something.
It's not bad enough that they killed the horse in the back of the flea market to get you that meat for the Philly cheesesteak.
Right.
But you're complaining about the sesame seed. So our first mutant is our Philly cheesesteak, Furious Philly cheesesteak guy. We'll come up with the exact name for the poll, which will be posted probably Tuesday morning. And our second mutant nominee is from... Florida again. I'm telling you, folks, it's Texas, Georgia, Florida. It's the same states every week. I don't know. Something's in the water in Florida. No offense to people from Florida that listen, but I'm sure you realize this. You live amongst these people. And if you're not a mutant, you're not going to take offense. But a Clearwater man says 3 syringes removed during a strip search at the Pinellas County Jail don't belong to him. Wesley Dasher Scott, 40, was arrested on a drug charge early Friday morning and was taken to the receiving area of the Pinellas County Jail. While he was being strip searched, Scott removed 3 syringes from his rectum and gave them to a deputy, according to an arrest affidavit. He allegedly told deputies the syringes were not his. It's like that Seinfeld episode about the proctologist,
yes,
where Kramer says they always come up with an excuse, or the proctologist says anytime he has to remove something, they go, it was a million to one. Wasn't mine. It was a million to one shot. I sat on it by accident.
I fell down.
Yeah. So before he was transported to jail, Scott was searched in a field where he was taken into custody. A deputy said that he asked Scott if he had anything on him and if he knew what would happen if he brought anything hidden into the jail. The deputy said that Scott knew what the consequences would be. But if he said he had nothing on him, he would be telling the truth.
It wasn't
It was in him.
It was in him.
Scott was charged with felony possession of contraband in a county detention facility, possession of drugs without a prescription, with intent to sell, possession of marijuana, and possession of drugs without a prescription. So the rectum, we'll come up with the syringe rectum hider. We'll come up with a clever name for the poll. So that'll be out Tuesday morning. So you have two great choices from Florida, the Philly cheesesteak guy and the rectum syringe guy. So take your pick, folks. I don't know which way I'm leaning this week. I don't like to sway the vote, but
that's a tough one. That's a real tough one this week.
See, I usually, unless it's a totally funny crime, I usually try to go for just crazy behavior. So I would probably lean towards the Philly cheesesteak guy, but I'm not. I've reserved my vote yet.
I just have so many questions about both of them.
Yeah. Well, that's what these stories, they don't really drill down too much. You might see a follow-up in like a couple of weeks, but when they break, that's all we really have to go on.
I need more information.
Yeah, I need to look up the proper Philly cheesesteak later. Because I've eaten them on all kinds of rolls, so I want to see if it's really a faux pas to have sesame seeds on your bun.
Or toasted bun or non-toasted bun.
I don't think I've ever had a toasted. See, toasted, I might yell.
Yeah. You're in the South, so we toast everything here.
Oh my God, the bread here is horrible.
We toast everything.
I went to there's a real quick before we get into our main topic. There's a great Italian place here with a guy who was Frank Sinatra's limo driver, who I go to. It's called the Hoboken Cafe. I'll give a shout out, and it has all real New Jersey and New York. Real authentic food. He has to put up a sign in his shop that says, New York, New Jersey bread is crusty. It's not stale, because people are so used to that like spongy bread down here.
Oh, we're used to our Texas toast. It's slathered in butter.
So he had to basically explain, my bread isn't stale. This is the way it is. That's the texture of the bread. So I laughed when I saw that a couple of weeks ago. So before we get into our main topic, which is Crazy Coworkers Volume 2, I guess we could say, and that's why Amanda's here to shed some light as a human resources specialist. Just want to make you, just remind you guys where we're available. iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, CastBox, Radio Public, and YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get notified of when a new episode is available. And make sure you, especially on iTunes, give us a review on our Facebook page, on our iTunes. It helps us in the standing. So, Amanda, I'm sure over 16 years. So is human resources all you've pretty much ever done, or straight out of school?
Yep, straight out of school, and I didn't even go to school for this.
That seems to be seems to be the theme. So when you first got into it, now you're probably immune to a lot of the things that you see now, right? Because you've seen, you could say you've seen it all.
Mostly. It takes a lot to surprise me now. You
can almost write a whole lot of shenanigans book, like I wrote about the parking lot about. You probably could, right?
I could, yeah. Yep.
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday. all the messed up stories, or just some advice.
The reason why I wanted to have you on is because I want to tell some more of my stories, and obviously I want to hear some of yours. But I want to hear your perspective, because a lot of my stories took place in the 90s and early 2000s, and in a lot of these places I worked, it was up to the management of the stores or wherever to be human resources as well. We did the hiring, we did the firing, we did the discipline, we did the write-ups. We didn't have that human resources arm to go to. There's only been a couple of jobs where I've ever worked where there was an actual human resources department. So I want to see how it would be handled nowadays, what your opinion is on what should happen, and I want to hear some of your stories. So I'm going to start with, I'm not going to use the guy's real name. I'm going to use his real first name, but I'm not going to mention his last name. I worked for a pharmaceutical company, which I've talked about in the past, and we had this guy named Kevin. He was the receiving manager who would take in the deliveries and go around and bring everybody their stuff when it came in, office supplies. And he was from Missouri, and he stood out like a sore thumb in New York. He had a weird accent. He was kind of bald, but he had that skin that turned red all the time. Like, you ever see somebody like that? Like, the minute you talk to them, if they get embarrassed, they turn bright red.
Like a tomato?
Yeah, it was almost like when somebody drinks, they have a drink and they turn red all of a sudden. He had that constant look of redness on his face. And he was always shady about like his past, like why he left Missouri. But my office was like the central hub of the pharmaceutical company where everybody would come and it was like a therapy session. I was like the therapist, and I would have all chairs in there for vendors that came and visited. I was a purchasing person. But it turned out like all day long, people would just come in and tell their problems and eat the candy I had. So this guy would come in every morning. I didn't really I tolerated him because he had the look in his eye where he would be the guy that would come back and shoot up the place if you pissed him off. So I wanted to stay on
You gotta be nice to him.
I wanted to stay on his good side. So this guy Kevin would come in every morning and tell me about his personal life, about what things he did with his girlfriend last night, explicitly what he did with his girlfriend.
Oh, he would get in detail.
In detail. And he, like guys talk when they, there's another girl in the office or somewhere and we would say, oh, she's cute or she's hot. He would always say, she's carved out of cream cheese. Have you ever heard that expression before?
No, but that's disgusting.
No, but I've looked it up and I've only found one reference to it, and somebody referenced it in a movie one time. But he used this expression all the time, like it would be a bunch of us guys talking and one guy would say, oh, she's hot, and he would say, oh, yeah, she's carved out of cream cheese. Oh. Now, I never got that, but okay, so the guy's a little weird. But he would come in and tell me that he bought this fancy bottle of wine for his girlfriend, and he named the bottle of wine. And he said how they lived it up with this bottle of wine. He really splurged. One day I'm walking in the supermarket and I see an end cap of this wine. It was $2.99. And
that's terrible.
So he broke up with the girlfriend, right? At first he tells me he needs new car insurance, right?
Okay.
So I was dealing with this insurance agent for at least 10 years. So I said, here's the name of my agent. It was an office full of women. They were great people. And I still have a policy with them. This is 25 years from when I first started with them. So I was probably with this company about 10 years. I said to Kevin, here's the name. Go down and see these people. They'll give you a good price. So he comes in the next morning. I go, how'd it go down at State Farm? Don't ask. He was all pissed off, so I had to go down to State Farm later in the week to pay my policy. So I go in, and the woman Donna that works there, she said, Charlie, did you send that nut Kevin in here? I said, yeah, what happened? He told me things didn't go well. She goes, all we did was ask him his name, his social security number, and some, questions for the insurance policy, and he refused to answer. He said that we were overreaching. He was like being interrogated by the FBI.
Just for basic information.
Basic information to give him a policy. So this guy was hiding something in his past. I don't know what it was, that he probably murdered someone in Missouri.
Maybe he was in witness protection or something.
Yeah, he's Henry Hill. I don't know what he did, but he comes back to work. Everything's fine. So then he tells me a few months later that he broke up with the girlfriend. But he had a freezer full of meat because they would cook every night and barbecue, and he didn't know what to do with all this meat because he lives alone, and now he broke up with his girlfriend. So I said, why don't we have a barbecue here at work? We'll put a grill in the back behind the building, which I don't think they really would have cared about. I said, you bring the meat, everybody will bring a dish, and we'll have a barbecue. That's a great idea. So word got to Human Resources that we were going to do a barbecue, and they didn't want us lighting a grill on the company property, so they said no. And we said, oh, and I don't know how it got back to, they came to me and said, we hear there's a barbecue, just tell everybody no. I said, okay. So he got wind, Kevin got wind that Human Resources, and he thought he was going to get fired because it was his meat.
Because it was his meat.
So he was paranoid all day, like he was coming in red-faced, I don't know what's going on. I go, Kevin, it's not a big deal. They just said don't do it and we'll be fine. So then a light bulb, because I'm an asshole, went off in my head to call everybody in all the different departments and have them call him and say, Kevin, I'm bringing potato salad tomorrow. Kevin, I'm bringing, like it's out of control, like the barbecue was still happening. So people were calling him every 10 minutes saying what they were bringing. He was like, no, the barbecue's canceled. I'm going to get fired. He comes to me like sweating. Charlie, this barbecue's out of hand. We got to stop it. Human Resources is going to fire me. So I said, don't worry, Kevin, I'll handle it. So the next morning we got in early and we put bags of charcoal outside his office. Like the barbecue was still going to take place. He was like shitting his pants. Then we finally told him it was a joke and whatnot. But it's like poking a tiger. This guy was already nuts, and we were tormenting this guy.
Never torment the crazies.
So why do you think he was like not willing to even give his name to an insurance company?
Yeah, that's sketchy. He's hiding something, definitely.
So give us a story. In 16 years, when you say like crazy people, what story immediately comes to mind from you? Like, again, you don't have to say where it's from or how long ago it was, just a story or even real names. What story pops into your mind when you think of a crazy coworker?
Coworker or someone that I've dealt with? Someone
you dealt with. It doesn't have to be somebody you worked next to, but somebody who worked in the company where you oversaw their behavior.
Yeah. Gosh, there's been so many. One of my favorites is the resignation letter that was on lavender paper. Someone wrote their resignation letter on lavender paper.
Construction paper?
Yeah, but it was lavender paper. It was lavender.
It wasn't like fancy resume paper. It was just like construction paper that a kid would draw on.
Mm-hmm, just like regular colored drawing paper with a Sharpie.
Was it written? Was it well written?
No, it says, I remember to this day what it says. It says, "This is my finalization letter.
Finalization.
I enjoyed working here. LOL. K, thanks, bye."
And that was their last day and everything?
That was it. They just left a letter and peaced out.
Now, did they hand you the letter, or you walked in and it was on your desk already?
It was delivered to our office. Yeah.
So, and you never heard from this person ever again?
Never heard from him ever again.
Was it a man or a woman?
I think it was a woman.
Okay, I was going to say lavender paper. I can't see a man drawing on lavender paper for some reason.
You never know.
Unless, there's already a screw loose.
Get it from their kids or something.
So what's the most difficult time you had with somebody? Like, did you ever have to have police come to get somebody out of a building?
Oh, 100%. I've had to have police multiple times.
And is it because they threatened to, kill everybody after they were fired? Or?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. My first HR job ever, I had two grown men fighting one another. They shared like a cubicle space where their backs were to each other.
Right.
And I'm walking down the little hallway where their cubicles were, and I see them in each other's face. So here is little bitty 23-year-old me, and I'm having to break up a fight between two grown-ass men and separate them. And
they both got fired?
We fired the first one and eventually fired the second one for something completely different.
Now, is that an automatic firing nowadays if you fight at the work? Because I know times have changed. Yeah. It's automatic?
Usually workplace violence, 9 times out of 10, is automatic.
What if I'm sitting there minding my business and someone comes up and just punches me and I defend myself?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If you defend yourself, you still participated in the fight.
So you basically just have to take the punch and fall to the ground and say you were struck.
Or just walk away.
Wow. Mm-hmm. See, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I did have someone pull a box cutter on someone, and that person walked away, and they ended up remaining employed. The other person with the box cutter, because so many people saw them do this, was immediately fired.
See, this is like violent shit.
Mm-hmm. And that one was caught on camera. That was caught on camera.
See, I don't have any violent stories. I just have funny stories, like people that are just batshit out of their mind. But I don't recall ever seeing. Well, yeah, I've seen fights. I've seen scuffles in the warehouses and stuff. But I don't ever remember seeing a full blown. And the company, I'm telling you, the companies I worked for, they were either privately owned by a couple of people or one person, and you could actually fight and then sort it out and just go on with your life, because there have been altercations. But it's these companies now, the bigger companies, like the pharmaceutical company I worked for, and these bigger companies where there's a structure in place. But most companies I worked for were owned by one person. There was no real big chain of command. You had some area department managers, and you just hash things out. More, yeah. You had people drinking on the job. You just hash things out. You dealt with it, and you move on with your life, unless something was repeated behavior. And lateness was a bigger problem than somebody scuffling in the warehouse.
Oh, lateness. 9 times out of 10, most terminations are time and attendance issues. Just people can't get to work.
Do you know, and I'm not saying this to be funny or anything, I have never in my entire life been late for a job, late for school, never been late in my life for anything.
Me either.
I'm annoyingly early for shit.
Me too. I'm always early.
Yeah, when it's a party at someone's house at 6:30, I'm circling their block.
Right, or just hanging out in my car.
See, I dealt with a lot of lazy people at jobs where one name comes to mind. My first job, I think I was still in high school when I got promoted into management, or very shortly after the summer of after high school. But there was this department manager in the sneaker department, which I worked. He was my immediate boss, and he was the laziest sack of shit. You either worked in the morning 8:30 to 5:30, or you worked 12:30 to 9:30, depending on whether you were opening the store or closing shift. So on the days he worked 12:30 to 9:30, this guy Jim, he would pull up. Now, the back of Herman's was at the mall, and there was this big parking lot, and behind the parking lot there was this giant hill, grassy knoll, and then there was another parking lot on top of that hill. Now, the trucks would come at 12 o'clock every day to drop our products off. And we would have to unload the trucks. And usually it would last till like 1 o'clock or 12. It would take us about an hour to unload the truck. This guy was doing it at 12:30. We would see him pulling at 12:15 on top of the hill, eating his lunch, watching us unload the truck. And he would wait. He was willing to be late if it was 12:45. Whenever that door to the truck got shut,
that's when he would
then he would come to work and come in and just wipe his brow and say, "Oh, sorry, I'm late." But he didn't know that we could see him sitting on the hill, eating a sandwich, watching us every day that he had to work.
What a jerk.
But I got even with him. I found out that he, on his days off from the sporting goods store and on nights that he didn't have to work, he worked at Taco Bell. Now, he didn't want anybody knowing he worked at Taco Bell. And again, no making fun of fast food workers. But this guy was an asshole and thought he was better than everybody. And we used to tease him, "We know you work at Taco Bell." And he would deny that he worked at Taco Bell. Mm-hmm. So one night, we went down there, carload of us. We went to Taco Bell. We pulled in the parking lot and peered in the window. And we saw him. It was just him in the kitchen, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and somebody working the drive-up window. We went up to the drive-up window. We pulled around. We must have ordered $50 worth of food, so we had to make it all and sweat back there. Then we pulled up to the window and honked the horn and yelled, "Jim, you're an asshole," and blew the horn and drove away on him.
Away.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That was for getting even for all the times he sat up on the hill and watched us unload the truck. So you got to pay back these people.
Karma
So,
always gets you.
What's the laziest reason that you know that anybody's ever been fired? Like just downright lazy. Not so much with lateness or attendance, just not performing a job or just fucking just laziness.
Falling asleep, sleeping at work.
Sleeping.
Yeah. One particular industry has beds, if you will, or something that could be a bed.
For employees?
No.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah. And, there's a pillow and a sheet, and this particular employee working off shift takes the phone off the hook and just lays on this bed-like structure and just falls asleep. Falling asleep is immediate.
It's immediate termination? You don't even get a warning?
No.
Well, shouldn't it depend, like, whether you're in a job where, like, your job is, like, crucial to, like, the life or death of somebody or something like that, where, like a police officer falling asleep on the job or something. But what if he's just, like, an office person and he's tired and he sleeps in his cubicle? It's automatic firing?
Automatic.
Really?
Yep.
Wow, they don't get any leeway nowadays.
Nope.
I've seen many people sleep. So what about, like, hygiene? I used to work in that pharmaceutical company, and there were people from all over the world, scientists from all over the world. And everybody had different, I guess you could say, customs or way to do things. And I had this guy who used to take his shoes and socks off and put his feet on his desk and clip his toenails.
Oh,
middle of the day. You could hear the clipping.
That's disgusting.
From your office. He was like 3 offices down, from all the cubicles in the middle of the island, in the middle of the floor. We all used to hear the clipper. And we used to go past his office, and he had his feet on his desk, clipping his nails. Now, would you get fired for that nowadays, or just talk to?
It would be a crucial conversation for sure.
Like, how do you? Yeah. So, how would you like? So, I'm the guy clipping my toenails. Like, what are you saying when you call me in? I hear that you're clipping toenails.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways you can have that crucial conversation, and let him know that there have been some reports that he is partaking in hygiene activities where others can see it, and it is our recommendation that he take care of that at home. Or
have you ever had a problem like that where somebody was doing some maintenance to their body, like
I've had stinky people,
like body odor?
Yeah, or like smell like animal, like
they live in like a hoarder's house?
Yeah, or like they smell like cat pee or something like that.
And how do you say that? Like, how do you just sit somebody down and say you smell?
That one's a delicate one. It's hard to tell. You're making me laugh now. It's hard to tell someone you smell, but
well, that's in essence what you're saying. You're just putting it in a nice way.
I mean, you have to put on your best like press secretary hat and choose your words carefully, because sometimes their stinky problem can be due to a medical condition.
Sure, yeah, and you don't want to discriminate.
Which I've had that. You don't. Right. You gotta walk very carefully around the stinky conversation.
Okay, now. When this has been going on for years, no matter what company I work for. Now, I know smoking isn't as popular as it used to be, although in that parking lot I worked at, forget about it, everybody smoked. But smoking now is on the decline. But back in the day, people were allowed to take these smoke breaks. Now, I like to eat cookies, but I didn't get to go stand outside for 15 minutes and eat a cookie. People like porn, but they don't get to go in their office. I know some people do, and you've probably fired people for watching porn. But people don't get to go in their office and watch porn and do the, they enjoy that. People enjoy things, but they don't get a break for it. When did this become? Now, are smoke breaks still prevalent where people get to go out and smoke just because they like to smoke?
Yeah, they are. You're supposed to clock out for that now. Whether or not people do that, we can't say one way or another. We also have people that, they can't vape because vaping's popular now, so they have to go outside to vape or whatever. But yeah, you're supposed to clock out for that.
We had a woman at a technology company. We called her Puffy. Not to her face, like Sean Puff Diddy Combs.
Right.
We called her Puffy because she used to take work breaks. She used to smoke all day and then go in every once in a while to do her work. She was outside all day.
She was outside all the time.
Now, when I started with this company, I was in the warehouse, and she would have to come through the warehouse to go out in the back and smoke. So I used to put a big chart up in the thing, and we used to all put $1, and we used to guess how many smoke breaks she would take by the end of the day. We would guess 25, 29, and we would keep track. We would go to the tally board, and then the person closest without going over would win the money. So we called her Puffy.
That was every day.
Every day. This woman, and on those days where it was like humid and rainy out, like the smoke just lingers in the air and on her. So she would walk past. It was like Pigpen from the Charlie Brown cartoons where the big cloud was following her and back into the office. This woman stunk like smoke. We called her Puffy. And then I got moved into the purchasing department, which I sat on the opposite side of a cubicle from her. And I could smell that smoke all day on her.
Gross.
So she was a sales rep for J.P. Morgan, was one of our big clients in New York City, and Goldman Sachs. We had them all. But she was the go-to person for the J.P. Morgan account. Now, we had our regular phones on our desk with like 10 lines to dial in and out, like a regular corporate phone. But they also installed this red phone on her desk.
Like a bat phone?
It was like a bat phone. It didn't dial out. It only dialed in. It was J.P. Morgan. Calling direct line from J.P. Morgan in an emergency if they needed something. That's how a high priority J.P. Morgan and these companies were for us. So don't ask me how, but I had some friends high up in the company who got me the direct line number of that phone. It was, believe it or not, I was out on Long Island, but it was still a New York City area code. They gave me the number of the phone, and I said, how am I going to fuck with this woman with that phone? Because I was so pissed off her. We're all working. She's taking 100 smoke breaks. I said, I'm going to get even with this woman. So I call her regular phone, and I tell her that I disguise my voice, tell her that I found her wallet in the mall. So she's like, we see her, everybody's watching. Now, everybody's in on this. They know what I'm doing. They see her digging in her purse. She goes, that's impossible. I have my wallet right here. I go, well, are you so-and-so? I name her name, her address that I got out of the computer. I go, I have your license. I have your wallet. I have your car keys. She's like, that's impossible. I have it right here. She goes, what's your phone number? I got to call you back. So I give her the number to that bat phone.
So she's calling the bat phone. So
she hangs up with me, and she's digging through, and we hear her talking to herself. She goes, how could they have my wallet? And now she's talking to the woman next to her, this woman, Kathy. Kathy, I just got the strangest call. They say they have my ID, my wallet. They gave me a phone number to call. Now, she didn't even know the number to that bad phone. Only the owner of the company, and I forget how I got it. My brother-in-law was high up in the company, so I think he got it for me. So she dials. She says, all right, this is a mistake. I got to call this guy back. So she dials the number I gave her, and the bat phone rings. She couldn't put two and two together that she was calling herself. She hangs up. She goes, every time I want to handle something, they got to call. Hello? Hello? Hangs up.
So would she notice that?
No, she must have called herself 50 times in a row before she realized that she was calling herself about this wallet situation. Then we all start laughing, and she got pissed off and then went to the owner of the company and told on me. And the owner of the company goes, you know what? I think that's funny. It was like laid back. Like in a normal company, I would have been in trouble, right? For tormenting this woman?
Yeah, probably.
Would I have gotten fired for that?
Potentially.
Really?
Or at least a final warning, yeah.
You get a final warning just for a practical joke?
If somebody feels, these days, if they were made fun of or bullied or...
See, this is why I could never work in a in a like corporate setting anymore.
It's difficult these days. I'm even over it.
So you basically have to, if you want to succeed at you either have to be a kiss ass or just stay to yourself.
I stay in my bubble, and I'm the HR person.
I just find that crazy that you would get fired for a practical joke that really didn't hurt anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We used to call somebody's phone and connect 2 Chinese restaurants.
How did you do that?
We would use conference call and connect them 2 Chinese restaurants to each other and connect it to somebody, and they would be finding it out, the 2 Chinese restaurants. You called me and then connect it to someone's desk, and they would pick up hello, and there would be a third party on there. And we would just we would do all this stuff all day. But that's grounds for termination now?
I mean, it's grounds for at least some sort of corrective action or crucial conversation or something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I'm an adult babysitter. Every day.
So I definitely would have been fired for this then. Remember in my last, I think on the show with Johnny B, we talked about getting even with people, and when I dumped the paint over that guy's office and we trashed his office and it was covered in paint.
Right.
Remember that guy?
Yeah.
Well, he had a guy, the reason why we didn't like that guy Barry, he had this guy.
Does anybody like anybody named Barry?
Barry Gibb.
No, about the only one.
But this guy Barry was mean to everybody, and he had this assistant working for him down in the basement of the Herman Sporting Goods store named, nobody really knew his first name. His name was really John, but everybody called him 4x4 because
4x4.
He was 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide. He was a little short, roly-poly fat guy who had probably mental problems and probably some type of disability where he was a little bit slow. And he wasn't a bad guy, but I think because there was something off about him, and because he had to work for Barry, he would snap on a daily basis at work.
Like snap, like yell
he
at
would
people?
be carrying light bulbs. Like his only job would unload trucks, change light bulbs in the store, take out garbage, keep the store clean, vacuum. Mm-hmm. But he would be like carrying something, and if it got too heavy, and he would carry like fluorescent light bulbs, and if one started to fall, he would just take the whole box of fluorescent lights, slam on the ground, and scream, "Ah!" Scream in the middle of the sales floor where customers were.
Just throw it.
He was a total nut job, this guy. So we used to, I don't know who started. Somebody said that he liked little boys and that he had this long pickup truck in the parking lot. But you know the pickup truck where they put that hard cover over and it has all the windows on it?
Oh, like a camper shell.
Like a camper shell. Other employees used to tape pictures of little boys from magazines and tape it to his window like they were trying to get out of the car and just torment him.
Oh,
and it would make him snap
awful.
even more and more and more. So he wasn't all there. So one day my friend and I that I worked with were leaving. I don't know if we were going home or going to lunch, and we got him at the traffic light. It's the busiest intersection on Long Island, Glen Cove Road and Old Country Road. And jokingly now, at the red light, I started revving my engine next to him like I wanted to race him. And he looked at me like his eyes lit up like he was going to race me. And he was doing like gas, brake. And his car was rocking back and forth. And he must have hit gas twice, went right through the red light, and almost caused a major pileup at the intersection. We laughed for like weeks about this guy. But this guy was nuts. They used to wrap him in packing tape and hang him in the elevator from his feet. They all used to do initiation with him. Yeah. That was like the initiation when you start. They never did it to me for some reason, but when I got promoted to that store, you're supposed to get somebody and call them to the stockroom and then wrap them in tape and hang them in the elevator from their feet for like 15 minutes. But they used to do it to this guy 4x4 like every day.
Did he know people called him 4x4?
Yeah, that's what you called him, and he thought it was funny.
Really?
Yeah, he was like a volunteer fireman for like a local fire company. But he wasn't all there. But I think that was because of that guy Barry tormenting him. But he used to just, when he would get frustrated, just throw all the stuff that he was carrying in the middle of the sales floor where, you have customers shopping for sneakers or sporting goods, and he would just let out this. So we made a video about him, like a Saturday Night Live style sketch in my friend's garage. I was Barry and he was 4x4. And this tape circulated through the whole store. It was like the funniest thing. I wish I still had that tape.
Oh, that's terrible.
So
funny, but terrible.
So what about stuff like that? Like joking around, taping the thing to the guy's car, and would that be grounds for termination?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
If it happens during, at the workplace, more than likely, yeah. I had.
You get fired for anything. I'm glad I worked back in all these places when you could get away with shit.
Exactly. I mean, I had someone who was kind of picking on other people. He would, it was in a warehouse type environment, and would, have his cart blocking the aisle where you couldn't get down the aisle. Just little passive aggressive, crap like that. Until one day he had one of those like motorized carts and was headed towards someone and almost ran over them. It was, he would just keep doing stuff like that. And then it was to the point that he was getting, really inappropriate, almost like borderline, pretty much racist.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, that I could see firing someone.
Yeah, telling people to go back to their country and things of that nature. And I guess the irony of it is that they were the same race, and he's telling them to go back to their country, but... had to put him on administrative leave or, suspension to investigate the situation. And when I terminated him, that was the first time I had someone to tell me to go fuck myself. and my response was, well, thank you for solidifying our decision. And I hung up.
Now, do you know that places I worked at, you could even get away with drinking on the job?
On the job.
Not illegal drugs. I think illegal drugs would have been a deal. But I had many people. There was this guy, Alex, I worked with at this store called Caldor, which I spoke about, where the guy shit in the box and the president of the company came and put his hand in the box. He used to get so drunk, come to work drunk, and drink throughout the day at work because he had kept it in his car. Where he used to think in the stock room in the back was his bed. He used to go on the bottom shelf and go to sleep and think he was home in his bed.
Make a bed.
Well, he used to bang his head on one of the wood shelves because he would get up too fast. So we thought of a good idea to get clearance towels from the houseware department. We made him a bed in there, and we wrapped the shelf above him in towels, so when he got up, he wouldn't bang his head anymore. So he would just go in there and sleep.
Well, that was nice to do.
That was nice because we didn't want to see him bleeding through the stockroom. So I was talking about this yesterday because I had forgotten about Alex, and he used to go in that same stockroom, and I know he used to pee in jars because he didn't. So now I'm thinking, I used to think, my theory was that the night crew shit in that box of toys where the president of the company, I think it was him.
It was probably him.
My wife and I were talking about it yesterday, and I'm like, you know what? Just a light bulb went off. I'm like, he shit in that box.
And probably, if he was drinking all the time.
So this guy was using my toy stockroom as his toilet and his bed. He used to think he was home, though. Say, I'm going to bed now.
No.
Yeah. But he was there for years. He never got fired. Ever.
No one had a problem with him sleeping.
Everybody knew he was sleeping. Everybody knew he was drinking. As long as he showed up for work and did somewhat of his job, they didn't care. And this was like a major chain company. And it did have a human resources, not in-house, but at the corporate level. They let him get away with it for years. Wow. I think he was still there when I left.
That's crazy.
So there was also this guy at Herman's, not the same store where 4x4 worked. He was an assistant manager named Bob. Now I was 19 when I got into management at that store, and he must have been in his late 20s. He was always sniffing, so I didn't, to this day, I don't think, other than marijuana that I've seen, I've never taken an illegal drug in my life. I just have no interest in it. And I've only seen maybe pot once or twice. So here I am, a 19-year-old kid, never saw drugs, never did drugs. I would walk in on this guy in the morning, and now it would be like 8 o'clock in the morning. The store would open at 9:30, but 2 managers had to open up. So sometimes I would get paired with this guy, Bob. And I liked Bob. Bob liked me. But he would be out partying the night before, doing cocaine, and he would have cocaine on his desk in the office there, like lines out in the open. And he would fall asleep, and he would need the cocaine to get him going. So he would be passed out on the desk. He would tell me, wake me up at 8:15 because we got to go to the bank. He would have all the money from the days before on his desk and say, here's the number it's supposed to be. Could you just count it for me and get it bundled and ready to go and wake me up and we'll go to the bank? Now, if I was a thief, I could have robbed the place blind. But I wasn't going to do that. So I used to make the deposit slip for him, and Bob, you got to get up. You got to get up. We got to go to the bank. So one morning, I wake him up. We have the money. He does a line. Now, I shouldn't have gotten in the car with this guy. I should have drove to the bank. He was driving. He had a Jeep Wrangler, which was his brother's, I think, that he borrowed. I don't know what happened to this guy. Now, I didn't know this guy didn't have a license. He got his license suspended. Found out on this trip. We're driving back from the bank. He's speeding through this Garden City, this town, and the light turns green, and he jumped the light too fast, and a truck that was making a left in front of him, he gunned the Jeep Wrangler engine and hit the back of the truck. Now, his Jeep bumper fell off. There was all plastic and parts on the ground. He says, hurry up, get out of the car, get all the parts to the car into the car. So he makes me jump out with him. We pick up his bumper, all the stuff. We get back in the car, and he just takes off, hit and run. So now I'm like, Bob, what the hell's going on? He's like, my license is suspended, and I'm probably not in good shape right now to be driving, and it's my brother's car. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back, and we're going to stage all these parts in the parking lot, like I was parked at the store, and someone hit it in the parking lot. So we got back to the store. We had to stage like this whole scene, like somebody backed into his Jeep. But on the way back, after he does a hit and run, he says to me, do you want to stop for bagels?
For bagels?
I go, Bob, are you out of your mind?
Like
the police are probably looking for you. They have a description of your car, and you want to stop for a bagel.
Did the police ever find him?
No, he called the police later that day and said he came out to his car and that the car was like that and filed an insurance claim and...
No.
Yeah.
And got away with it.
Got away with it.
That's insane.
So I was like an accomplice to insurance fraud and everything else, all because I was doing my job and going to the bank with this guy.
As a 19-year-old.
Yeah. So this guy was like, I'm telling you, he was sleeping and telling me. Now, I think in any job, but everybody knew that this guy was up to no good doing this stuff, but he stayed there for a long time, too, before.
Really?
I don't know if I think he quit, too. I don't think he even got fired. But, like, how did we get away with this shit back in those days? And now you can't even play a joke on somebody.
Nope, you can't.
That's crazy.
I've even had impaired people at work.
Impaired on just alcohol and drugs?
Depends on whatever their substance of choice is.
Now, do they admit that they're on it?
Not all the time, no. No. Sometimes they'll, deny it, and we, of course, send them to be drug tested or alcohol tested or...
Did you ever have anybody try to scam a drug test?
Oh, 100% I have, yeah.
Like borrowing urine from somebody else, or...?
No, this one they were... we could do drug tests in our office where...
Just random, say, we're going to do a drug test today.
Yeah, like if we have, like, reasonable suspicion that you're under the influence or, that you could be under the influence. Right. That in this particular office we could drug test you right then and there because there was someone that was authorized to do that. And the restroom was a few doors down from my office, and I'm in my office working, and all of a sudden you hear this loud commotion, and it sounds like somebody's falling down, and then you hear, oh shit!
Was her ass in the hand blower?
No. She comes out of the restroom and says that her sample is lost. And it was spilled all over the bathroom.
Did you see the urine on the bathroom floor? Or?
Oh, yeah. The entire floor was soaking wet.
So you think she dumped it?
Oh, yeah. She totally dumped it, but she had to sit there and drink water until she could produce another substance.
So she thought she had gotten away with it, like her one chance to pee ever for the rest of her life.
Right. Yep, she thought she got away with it.
What about people who share too much information at work? Can they be fired, like about their personal life?
No, I mean, I think people are going to... Some people...
What if it's offensive? What if they come in and tell you about their sex life, or not you, but another employee, and it's uncomfortable?
Well, then someone has to have that crucial conversation with them. Crucial conversation is like the big buzzword, It's having that conversation that nobody wants to have of, you may want to watch what you say at work. It can be offensive.
Well, the thing is, we spend more time with these people at work than we do with our own families in a lot of cases. Now, you have to see these people every day. So I don't know why you would want to tell somebody an embarrassing story about yourself. I had this one woman I worked with. She was a manager like me, and she lived about 40 miles from the store. And she had to come in the next day and told me that she had to crap so bad on the way home that she shit her pants on the way home, and it got all of her car seat, and she had to clean the car.
No.
Why would you tell anybody that?
She told you that she crapped her pants.
And she told some of the employees, too.
Oh, why would you tell people that?
Why? Because now, every time we looked at her from that point forward, we thought of... We even made up a song. Remember that song, Our House in the Middle of Our Street? Mm-hmm. We sang, Our House in the Middle of Her Street.
That's like the old Saturday Night Live skit, Oops, I Crapped My Pants.
Yeah. Why would you tell somebody, or the woman who told me that she had hemorrhoids, she was late for the job interview that time? You don't even know me. Why are you going to tell me you have an ass problem? Right? So do you can't fire somebody for something like that? Just coming in and giving away if it made someone uncomfortable?
No, I mean...
So you can. That's more to me. That's more harmful at the job than a practical joke.
Right. I mean, I don't want to know. You would be surprised though. People tell me things, and I don't know what it is about me. People tell me things, and I don't want to know this stuff, but I know it. I've known. I had my first HR job. Someone wanted a replacement card, like benefits card,
Right.
because they lost theirs, and then proceed to start telling me about a boil that they had on their body, and
A boil?
a boil, yeah,
In a private area?
oh yeah.
A boil?
Boil. But this was the same woman who would sit up at the front desk, and at the time we had a security camera, and the monitor was in my office.
Right.
And I turned to where the monitor would be, and I see her sitting up at the front desk with nothing but she had on no top. She had like a little camisole top on, and I had to go out there and say, "Where's your shirt?"
How old is this woman?
Oh, she was probably at the time, I would say, in her mid to late 50s.
Wearing a camisole.
Yeah, and she said that she got hot and took off her sweater because it was hot under the lights.
What was she under, a McDonald's French fry light?
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah, the Boyle woman was...
Well, what about people like the excuses people use? We had this manager. He was the store manager when I worked for a drugstore chain, and I was the assistant manager. And on days where I would be off or be scheduled to close the store and come in at 1 o'clock, he would be the manager to open the store. And he had to be there at 8 because the store opened at 9. At 10 after 9, employees would start calling me at home and saying, "Jeff isn't here yet. We have nobody to open. The customers are lined up. The pharmacy can't get in. You got to get here. You got to open for us." So I would have to come in on my day off, whatever, to open the door. And then he'd come staggering in an hour later. So we thought maybe he had a drug problem or an alcohol. But this was in 98 when the internet started to catch fire. He would be up all night. He was married, but he would be up all night on these porn and dating websites on the internet. And he would admit it to us that he was on the internet all night and he couldn't get up in the morning. So he ended up getting fired and divorced. His wife left him because
he was married while he was doing it?
Yeah, he was married and admitting to us that he was on these sites looking for women and the internet all night. And this is when the internet really started to catch fire, 98, 99. And he would openly tell us, not I'm not feeling good. At least come up with an excuse, but tell us you were on the internet all night. Mm-hmm. And this happened 10 times before he got fired.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
Say, how did that go for 10 times? Wouldn't you fire him after 2-3 times?
Oh yeah. I mean, it depends on what the company's absentee policy is, but you can these days you can get a verbal warning,
right?
You can get a written warning, and then a final warning. And then you're terminated.
Well, it's not even like he was using his days. He was interfering with the store's ability to open and generate revenue. He didn't. It's not like he called in and said, "I need you to cover me." He would just show up when he wanted,
right?
And the store couldn't open.
That's ridiculous. It was. What is it? Hampering business operations.
He was hampering because he was on the internet all night. What about? How do I put it? What about nowadays? If another employee paid another employee off to keep quiet about something, or is that termination?
Oh yeah, I haven't had that happen, but I'm sure that it would happen.
Because when I worked for that,
is that blackmail or something?
When I worked for that not even blackmail. When I worked for that Caldor company. Before I got promoted to assistant manager, I was a department manager, and there was 7 of us, but they would work us like dogs. Our standard week was 50 hours, and we only got paid for 40. We were salaried. Our morning shift, our daytime shift was 7 in the morning till 5:30 at night. It's a long day.
That is a long day.
And 12 to 10 if you closed. So there were some days, especially this time of the year where Christmas was over, where we just didn't want to work the 11-hour day. So there was a main entrance to the store. And there was a side entrance to the store that was in a mini, a mall. Where you could go out of the store into the mall.
Right.
And there was a security guard that we had who was 400-pound woman working there. And she loved Burger King that was in the mall. So we used to blackmail her with Burger King. We used to say, I'm going to leave now. It's 3 o'clock. I'm scheduled till 5:30. If anybody pages me, you tell them that I'm doing inventory in the stock room. And you used to bribe this woman with Whopper sandwiches.
Did you get her a Whopper?
We used to get a Whoppers and fries, and each of the area managers used to take turn during the week leaving early and bribe this woman with Whoppers.
That's sad.
And she would sit at that thing on her stool and just devour these Whoppers and then cover for us.
Really?
And we would come in the next day. Was anybody looking for me? Oh, yeah, right after you left, the store manager was paging you, but I got on the phone and told him that you were in the back and you were unloading something, putting out stuff that you couldn't come to the phone. So she would basically be our eyes and ears and lie for us. And we used to bribe her with Whopper sandwiches.
Wow. But these days now you have, your work cell phone.
Right, you can't get away with shit like that.
You can't get away with anything. I mean, I can go to a doctor's appointment and I still have people contacting me on my work phone. I had someone actually contact me on my work phone this morning.
On a Sunday.
On a Sunday.
And you answered?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say I wouldn't. So you have a separate work phone.
I do because I don't want people knowing my personal number.
Right.
We give people the option, like if your position is eligible for a cell phone, you get the option of, the stipend or the phone. I completely separate that. I don't want people knowing my personal number.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to recap like the last 10 years. I've worked mostly for myself, but I've worked at a parking lot, which wasn't really I worked by myself, and it was for people who really didn't give a crap what was going on. That's what the book was about. But I haven't worked in a corporate setting now where I had to sit and they weren't even strict rules, but they were, rules in about, I'm going to say 10 years now. So the world has changed a lot in 10 years, huh?
Yeah. It's changed a lot in the 16 that I've been doing this.
So I wonder, even if like the small companies that I worked for, where there was just like an owner, like the technology companies, if they even had to like adjust for the times, when it comes to things like sexual harassment and things like that, because they're afraid of lawsuits. I wonder if they're not as lax as they were 15, 20 years ago. Oh,
probably. The whole, Me Too movement and everything like that, I'm sure that they've had to do something. But there's a lot of companies now that are, it's like HR professionals who have started their own small business, and they provide HR services to small businesses.
Right. Yeah, because I know there was especially in like the big pharmaceutical company, we would have sexual harassment trainings and different stuff like that. And the only retail company I worked for that were really big into HR and really you couldn't get away with anything was TJ Maxx.
Really?
I hate to use the real name, but TJ Maxx, I have to say, folks, if they treat their employees very well, and they're very human resource oriented, very professional as far as interacting with your other employees. That's probably the only retail job I ever worked. I wasn't there for that long, where you really didn't even attempt anything. You knew that they meant business. You didn't screw around. You didn't play jokes on anybody. There was no shady shit paying off security guards.
Right.
You went, you did your job, and you went home. But everything else, like most other retail companies, I'm sure they've changed now with the times. But back then, like as an example today, you could drink. A guy was doing cocaine on his desk, sitting on the hill watching other people. You could get away with murder.
Crazy.
I even had managers, when we would do inventory, we were allowed to bring a friend or a family member to do inventory. You would give them, I forget what tax form it was, you would give them their social security number, and they would get like a 1 day, I don't know if it was a 1040, whatever the tax form was, where they would get paid for that day, and of course taxes would be taken out.
Oh, like a 1099.
Yeah, where they would get paid for that night, but they would have ghosts come in and work the inventory. They would get social security numbers of their friends and then pocket the money. And they would and they would even joke around. They would go to the time clock, oh, Mary wants to take a break now, cha-ching, and joke around about it. They would have like ghost employees come in to do inventory. They were getting paid for it, but we didn't have the manpower.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so shit like that was prevalent.
Which now that's called time card fraud now.
Oh, I think it's always been that, but they just knew that nobody was going to audit them or check it. It was back in the day where people just took you at your word,
Not anymore.
Well, I even remember a time where there was alcohol served. We would have right before Christmas in retail, they would bring like 6-foot hero into the 6-foot sandwich into the break room and have like a little Christmas party. I remember alcohol being at those parties.
Really?
Right in the store,
Not
drinking
anymore.
beer and everything.
Now, I did go to a work event. It was fairly recently, but it was after hours, and it was more of a celebratory event, and there was alcohol there. Just
right, but it wasn't on the work premises, right?
No.
Yeah. No, this was on the work premise, like in the break room.
Oh, yeah, no, that can't happen now.
And I even worked with a guy at that technology company who used to, and we were allowed, if we worked in the warehouse from, I think, 8 in the morning till 5. Anything after 5 was overtime. The rest of the company would leave, and it would just be us guys in the warehouse doing shipping, because we had, forget about the amount of orders we had, especially around Y2K. But we were allowed. We had a dinner allowance from the owner. We were allowed to she would buy us dinner every night for working overtime at a restaurant. We would have it delivered. And on inventory nights and big nights where we were going to be late, they would go get cases of beer, and we would drink beer while we were doing work, and the owner didn't care. As long as the work got done. God knows how bad the inventory was filed. shocked from everybody being drunk, but we would actually have
But she
beer.
had happy employees, I bet.
Yeah, she used to let us have beer and right on the job. I can't even picture that now, right?
No, that can't happen now.
So if someone's caught even smelling like alcohol, now they're fired.
No, I mean, I've had someone within the last couple of years, was displaying kind of odd behavior, and had to bring them in my office and ask them what was going on. They divulged some personal information, but they also smelled very strongly of alcohol, so we had to go, send them off for testing, and it came
On the spot testing, testing like a blood alcohol kind of test, like take blood or a breathalyzer.
This one was blood.
Really? Mm-hmm. So they can't say it was mouthwash or something.
Right, or like, it's my hand sanitizer. They couldn't say that. But, you could tell this person was very, very impaired. They tried to blame it on that they didn't sleep for a few days. They tried to blame their odd behavior. That they didn't sleep because of the personal issues they were going through.
Have you ever caught anybody with like an inconspicuous flask at their desk or something? Not like an open bottle of beer, but like something. And now they sell these bracelets that you can put wine in.
Do they really? I need one of those.
Necklaces. They have actually a bracelet with a little thing on the top. It looks like a jewel, but you unscrew it and you pour wine in there, and it holds like 6 ounces of wine.
No.
I'm sure it's not good because it's probably your body temperature from being against your skin, but you hold it up to your mouth and you drink the wine.
That would be a little weird to see somebody,
You never caught anybody with like a inconspicuous flask or a device in there, to drink vessel?
No.
What about like a water cup where they say it's water, like a sippy cup with a... that's not clear. Nobody ever came in with loaded with booze or anything. I
mean, I think they're smart enough to leave it in their car, but they're not smart enough to not get caught. Usually they're already displaying that behavior. So
right,
yeah.
Well, the good thing as we wrap it up about these crazy coworkers, no day is ever the same for you. I'm sure, right? Every day is a little bit different.
Every day is different
because you have a different situation to deal with. And these people, I have to say, some of my greatest memories of work, if it wasn't for these crazy people, folks, it would just be another humdrum, ordinary retail or corporate or whatever job. So.
Oh, it's entertainment.
Yeah,
it's pure entertainment.
Being that we can recall these stories, 16 years ago, 20 years ago, I think it's funny in a way.
No, it's hilarious,
it's not, it's sad for them in a way if they're doing crazy shit and they got fired. But, it tells you, as crazy as it is, it's, you guys enjoyed them because the first episode of this, you guys ate it up, and it's like the biggest episode we've had so far. So I hope you enjoyed this one just as much. Amanda? Thank you for coming in and sharing your experiences and shedding light on what would be allowed today and what wouldn't. It makes me definitely realize I'll never go back into not that I'm going to drink or anything on the job, but I wouldn't. It would be like a jail to me now.
Some days it can feel that way. Well, I'm sure jail's probably a little more entertaining.
Yeah, and they probably let you out in the yard.
You get yard time. I don't get yard time.
Well, Amanda, thanks for coming in today on your day off.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And folks, be sure to tell your friends and your family. We had another record-breaking week, over 1,600 downloads last week, our first episode of 2019. So thank you very much for that. Tell your friends, tell your family. Now, before we go, Amanda, your mom's a big fan of the show, right?
She is. She's your biggest fan.
See, folks, even my guest hosts, moms are loving the show, so we'll give a shout out to her. And thank you all for your continued participation on social media with the polls, the Mutant of the Week, the interaction, the comments. We thank you very much for that. So make sure you subscribe, give us a review on iTunes and on Facebook. So that's going to about wrap it up. And folks, as I always say, and whether it be at work, out in your everyday, even sitting in your driveway because you have to see the public go by, beware. It's a shit show out there. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a bunch of malarkey. Take care, everybody.